Welcome to Lone Star Politics right here on 91.7 KVRX. I'm the Doctor of Politics, Dr. Love. If you were listening earlier, I was just on the show In the Know. Here we are on Lone Star Politics. We are talking about local issues that affect you in your life right here in Austin. We also do talk a little bit about state and federal issues as well. And last week, if you were listening, I was talking not necessarily about politics, but about life in general and the importance of finding your purpose in life. In fact, this has been such an important theme in my life recently that this past weekend I went to Big Bend, which is the national park in Texas. It's about 8 hours away from here. And I went there in search of myself. I decided I wanted to spend time with God, with the Creator, with the Spirit of the earth, in nature. Just isolated from people, and just find out and just ask God, what am I supposed to do with my life? And I went up there. I hiked 7 miles with all the water that I was going to carry for the weekend, and I just camped out all alone and meditated and prayed and enjoyed beautiful sights up in Big Bend. If you ever get a chance to go to Big Bend, it is absolutely beautiful. And I just asked God for guidance in my life. And I'll tell you what he said in a little bit. But it's really important, if you are searching for happiness, if you are seeking fulfillment in your life, one of the things that makes us fulfilled, according to Freud, is important work. Now, I'm not a fan of Freud. I think most of his stuff is wacky. But this idea of doing work that you value, that you think is important, is really important. You look at the happiest people on earth. A lot of them are professors who are very happy with their jobs because they love their jobs. So if you love your job, if you love what you do in your life, then you are happy. The other key ingredient to happiness is valuable relationships, successful relationships, a good marriage, good friendships, and of course your relationship with God, the Creator, the supernatural, the spiritual, whatever you want to call it. God goes by many different names, but either way, when you look at the earth and you look at the universe, some force created that. And most people on earth, and indeed most Americans, believe that some divine force, divine energy source, created the universe, and we worship that in one way or another. So let me ask you, what do you really enjoy doing? What are you passionate about? And second of all, what are you really good at? When you know the answers to those two questions, what do you love to do and what are you good at, that'll give you a great jumping off point into figuring out what you should be doing with your life. If not your full-time job, start as a part-time job or a hobby. Get rolling. You should be doing on a daily basis what you love to do. If you love playing music and you're a high school teacher, practice every night. If you really love feeding the homeless, give out sandwiches every day after work. Do what you love to do, whatever that is. If you love to write, spend an extra hour at work just at your computer writing. Do the things that you love to do every day, and that is one of the best ways that you can serve God and serve the world. Because when you do what you love to do, that makes God happy. Because he created all of us differently with different passions. And when we pursue our passions, that means we are living out the life that God intended for us to do. So, politics. Well, let's do a little recap from what we learned last hour in the Know. We had the Democratic National Convention, and for the first time, gay rights was a really important part of the platform. As someone who despises all political parties because they've all been, if they're Republican or Democrat, they lie to you or they're ineffective. And the Libertarian Party, though I like their platform, is extremely ineffective. I think party politics is one of the reasons that things are oftentimes a shambles in the United States politically. But you look at the Democratic National Convention, they finally put gay rights as an important part of the platform. And it's about darn time. The Democrats have been saying, we're against the war on drugs, we're for gay rights, but they haven't done squat about it. And I'm sad to say that Obama has even cracked down on legal users of medical marijuana. For example, in California, they raided dispensaries under Obama's watch. In Montana, the state legislature was going to vote about whether or not to renew medical marijuana or to stop it. And right before that vote, the DEA came and raided medical marijuana dispensaries in Montana. That's the federal government coming into state affairs and intimidating them. That's the federal government coming in and saying, hey, you better not pass medical marijuana again. We're going to raid your dispensaries. We're going to scare you. And you know what? It really freaked out a bunch of legislators. That happened under Obama's watch, and that's unacceptable. But finally, they're doing something about gay rights. Now, I believe that our rights come from our Creator, not from the government. So if you are gay and you want to marry somebody, that is totally your right. Who is the government to tell you who you can and cannot spend the rest of your life with? Now, I'm probably preaching to the choir here because this is Austin. Austin's a very liberal city, very cool city. We're very accepting of others. And the other thing is, this is very much of a generational issue. I'm just about to turn 30. In fact, I turned 30 in 2 days. No, 3 days. And, you know, my parents' generation is coming around on gay marriage. They're getting it. It's our grandparents. It's those that are 65 and older. It's those that are a little bit older than baby boomers. That generation has trouble with gay rights because they didn't know very many homosexuals, and they just don't understand that it's not a choice. It's in fact something that's, you know, they're born with. This you know, whether you're homosexual or straight, that is a genetic characteristic by and large, and it's extremely wrong to discriminate against someone either for a personal preference or for something that's genetically based. And most people today get that. Have you ever heard of Antonio Beeler? He is a graduate of West Point. He served in the United States Army, and he is a graduate from the Stanford Business School. Now, Stanford is up there with Harvard. It's one of the top business schools in the country. He was arrested New Year's Eve of this year for filming a cop, for taking pictures of a police officer being very aggressive towards a female. Now, why did the cop not want him to take pictures? Because he was doing something wrong. If he was doing something good, you would want him to take photos. But he was, in fact, doing bad things to her. He was being very aggressive to her. He hurt her. He hurt her arms. And he arrested the passenger for public intoxication. Have you ever given a friend a ride home who's too drunk to drive? I've done it many times, and I've been that friend many times. Can you imagine the police pulling you over and then arresting your passenger for being intoxicated in public? I mean, you're giving them a ride home. They're not driving. You're trying to get them home to a safe place. And so then the police come and say, oh, they're too drunk to be in public. We need to take them to jail. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be much safer in jail than I will be in the privacy of my own home. So that's what this cop did. He was aggressive to the driver, and then he charged the passenger for public intoxication because she told the driver that she didn't need to take the sobriety test, which you don't. You can refuse that. And so the police didn't like what she was doing, so they arrested her for public intoxication. Now, I have great sympathy for her because I myself have been arrested for public intoxication numerous times, but only once was I really intoxicated. I'm not going to fault the police for that one. I was not in a good place then. That's when I first came to Austin 5 years ago. It was my first football game, and I got a little, hit the sauce a little too hard that one. But last year, it was 2 years ago, excuse me. I was arrested for public intoxication because I was basically asking a police officer, what he was doing and, whether his actions were appropriate. And his response was basically, put your hands behind your back. And I won in court, both in the university because it was at a football game again. So the university tried to prosecute me, and the city of Austin tried to prosecute me. I won both cases. So people are often wrongfully arrested for public intoxication, as this girl was. So Antonio Beeler was arrested for taking photographs of a police officer doing bad things, and he since started a group in Austin. It's called Peaceful Streets, the Peaceful Streets Project. You can look them up at peacefulstreets.org. And what this group does is they go around and they've basically raised lots of money to give people video cameras so that when they see something inappropriate happening, specifically if they see law enforcement doing something that is wrong, they will take out their video cameras and videotape it, because that's the only evidence that's really going to work. My word against a police officer's word is really not effective in court, sadly. You really need to have good evidence. So, Peaceful Streets Project and Cop Watch are now going around Austin, thankfully, and videotaping police to make sure that they're doing their jobs correctly. This is a wonderful thing. This is technology that's being really helpful to freedom. When the police know they're being filmed, they perform their jobs better. In reality, all people perform their jobs better when they know they're being watched. So this is a good performance enhancing idea. It also is a way to preserve our liberty because we know that we know what the police are doing when we are filming them. This is also guaranteed in the First Amendment, which guarantees the freedom of the press. Now, the freedom of the press involves visual and auditory press coverage. So, for example, if the police are yelling at you and being very aggressive with the way they arrest you, I should be able to get close enough to where I can hear what's being said and see what is being done. That is what journalism is. That is what press is. That is how you cover an event. Remember, journalism is not only asking questions of politicians, it is also observing events that happen. And if you can't hear or see what's going on, that is not freedom of the press. Unfortunately, Antonio Bieler was recently arrested for doing just that, for filming cops. So this is the second time that he's been arrested for being a good citizen and holding police accountable. What also goes along with this is that Austin recently changed the rule as far as how close you can be to videotape a cop. They now say the rule is 50 feet. Now, 50 feet is pretty far to film a cop. How are you going to get audio when you're filming from 50 feet away? I mean, imagine that. The police could be, they literally could be whispering things in your ear that are untrue, that are threatening. They could be yelling at you, and you still might not be able to hear them, especially if you're on like 6th Street, and there's lots of ambient noise. So the Austin City Council, with the approval of the police chief, have gone ahead and basically restricted our First Amendment rights, our right to the freedom of the press, because now we can't get close enough to really hear what's going on. And 50 feet is pretty far away to see too, especially if you're like filming on your iPhone or some video camera on your phone. It's going to be very hard to get good footage that will actually show anything when you have to be 50 feet away. So this is just extremely inappropriate. It's just so wrong of local government to usurp the Constitution with these laws that are completely unnecessary and are really just meant to hide police corruption and police brutality. And it's unacceptable. And if you find this unacceptable, we have options. And the options are go to City Council and let them know that you, as a taxpayer, as a citizen of Austin, you find it unacceptable that your constitutional rights are being taken from you. Your constitutional right of freedom of the press, and some would even say that videotaping and filming is freedom of speech. I can take that footage and make a movie and put it on YouTube and share it with thousands of people around the world. That is freedom of speech, and they are constraining freedom of speech. They are restricting freedom of speech and freedom of the press, and it is wrong. And frankly, Austin is not going to tolerate it, because Austin is a very free city. People in Austin know how wonderful the First Amendment is and love to express themselves. And gosh darn it, if someone disagrees with you, most people are happy to hear them and hear them out. And this is just a great place to live, and people love their liberties here. And so I know this isn't going to last long, because Austin's going to rise up against this tyranny of restricting freedom of the speech and freedom of the press. So Antonio Bieler was arrested for the same thing that he was arrested for before, which is basically filming cops. And so I think really the city of Austin has quite a challenge on their hands, because Antonio Bieler is a very smart individual who served in the United States Army and has a business degree from Stanford. He is not going to be someone that you really want to have on your bad side, because he will fight back in any means legally, and I really think the city's going to lose a lot of time, energy, and money fighting Antonio Bieler. I really think they need to issue an apology letter and fire Officer Aborski, who is the one who is mistreating that female driver and the one who arrested Antonio Bieler. Now let me tell you a little bit about Antonio Bieler's first arrest. This is how ludicrous his arrest was. So he started taking photos. The police officer said, don't do that. He said, I have a right to do this. I have a responsibility to do this. And so then they put him in handcuffs. And then they tried to figure out what to arrest him for. They didn't know what to arrest him for. So first they gave him a breathalyzer because it was New Year's Eve and they assumed he was drunk. Or at least, he had alcohol in him. They could get him for public intoxication or drunk driving. Breathalyzer showed 0. Nothing. No alcohol in his system. So they gave him another breathalyzer. Still 0. So they realized they couldn't arrest him for alcohol. So then Officer Borski makes up this complete lie and says that he spit on him. He said that Antonio Bieler spit on him when he was being arrested. That is completely untrue. Here's why it's untrue. The police dash cam video would show that because he was arrested in view of the dash cam. And guess what Police Chief Acevedo did? He withheld the dash cam footage from public. Why would you do that? The reason is because it shows your officer lying. Otherwise, you would show the video and it would simply prove that that Antonio Bieler spit on him. But that's not what he did. And so this is just ridiculous that we allow the police to withhold their video footage from us when it shows that they're lying to us. That's the time when the police chief should put it out there and say, you know what? We made a mistake. And here's my guy making a mistake. And we're not going to tolerate this. And I'm going to fire him. Because I want you to know that every officer in Austin is a trained professional, is honest, and is doing the right thing. But he didn't do that. Police Chief Acevedo is covering up the tracks of police corruption and tyranny and lying by his officers. This is unacceptable. This is America. This is Austin. This is Texas. This is the greatest state and the greatest nation on earth. And this is, in my opinion, the greatest city in this great state. How can we allow for the police chief to cover up this lying, deception, and tyranny by his officers when the video evidence is right there? All they have to do is just say, listen, we're sorry, we made a mistake. We're not going to allow this anymore. It's this awful code amongst police officers of never turning each other in that is just really tainting the reputation of police officers, and it's hurting the citizens who they swore to protect, as well as the Constitution they swore to uphold. There are many good police officers who would very readily want to turn in liars, cheats, and bad police officers, but they know they can't because they will be disenfranchised. No one will trust them, and that's not what the police officers want. That's not what the unions want. That's not what internal affairs wants. Internal affairs doesn't want to bust anybody. They just want to make it look like they're doing their job and let everybody be. But that the police are a very corrupt institution. I watched the movie Knockaround Guys, and the police end up getting hold of some mob money, and they try to keep it. And one of the mobsters says, yeah, some cops got it. Another one says, yeah, corrupt cops. And a third mobster says, yeah, you said they were cops. I don't believe all cops are corrupt, but I believe way too many, especially here in Austin, are not serving us as well as they should be. Way too many are violating the Constitution, they're violating our constitutional rights, and they're arresting people with no cause, and it is just wrong. And I'm thankful that we have people like Antonio Bieler who are standing up to them and doing their best to promote freedom and liberty. Things like Cop Watch and the Peaceful Streets Project. These are great things that we as citizens of Austin can really be thankful for, because these are people working very hard to keep us free from tyranny here in our beloved Austin. So, since I've been ranting about police brutality, have you given any more thought to what it is that you're meant to do with your life? What are you passionate about? And what are you good at? Those are two very important questions to answer when you're thinking about what you should be doing with your life. Now, if you're in college, this is the best time to think about what you should be doing, because it's going to affect the classes you take, the friends you hang out with, the books you read. It affects a lot. And sadly, I didn't really start thinking about what I wanted to do with my life until about 2 years ago, and more seriously this past year. Prior to that, I was just drifting. I was drifting in a sea of basically knowledge. I've been a professional student for most of my life. Since I was 5, I've been going to school on and off without any serious career. I spent some time bartending and waiting tables, but I never took a job where I was like, okay, this is a real serious job and I need to do it really well, and this is going to escalate in my career. That was never the thing for me because I always knew I was going to go back to school. Well, I'm graduating this year. I have to graduate. My parents are totally done helping me out with paying tuition, and student loans have said no more to me. So I'm graduating this year, and I now have a much better idea of what I want to do with my life. And had I known this 10 years ago, I would be so much further along than I am now. But I'm just grateful that I am where I am now. I'm not thinking, boy, I could be so much further along. I'm thinking, I'm so glad I decided to sit down and think about where my life was going now, rather than when I'm 40. In 10 years, I could be married with children with a job I hate and thinking, wait, where am I going in my life? And then it's going to be so much harder to change. Right now, I'm a single male with no attachments, and I can live anywhere and do anything, really, without worrying about taking responsibility for anybody else. I don't have any children. I don't have a wife. So this freedom, especially if you're young, if you're in college, you have the freedom to choose what you want to do with your life. And I really encourage you to take the opportunity now and think about